am currently on my way to Irvine to meet Taketo. I met Taketo many years ago when I was looking to invest in a very nice chair. And when I met him, I was so impressed by him that not only did I buy a chair from him, but I got him an internship at the Silicon Valley startup that I was working at. So today, we're gonna meet in Irvine. It's been about 2 years since I've caught up with him. So I'm looking forward to catching up to him, but also sharing his story, because young people like him were just so impressive. They just give me so much hope for the future. So yeah, let's go meet him. Bye. Look at this guy. Look at this guy.
How long has it been?
2 years, man.
Nice
What's up, man? What's up? What's up,
How's
man?
it going? Oh man.
You gotta say hi.
Hi guys, Taketo.
Yeah, very good. All right, lead the way.
Alrighty, headed to Woodbridge Center. This is like a really popular hangout spot in high school.
Tell the audience, they could be Korean, they could be international.
That's true.
So tell them a little about this place.
So Irvine, I guess, very commonly known as like a...
Irvine, California.
Irvine, California.
Irvine, California.
In the United States of America. Really, I think a lot of families move here to like raise their kids, I feel like. The schools are typically very good, good academics, good education.
Okay.
And this is like the Woodbridge area of Irvine, which is like it's a cute little community. I think there's a lot more personality here than the other like Irvine areas where it seems a lot more cookie cutter. These condos are a little bit more nice, a lot more greenery. Yeah, I mean, we moved here
Long time ago.
when I started in 8th grade.
Oh, in 8th grade.
Yeah.
So you've been here for a while.
Yeah. But it's been great. Now I go to school in Claremont, which is like a 45-minute drive, so I still live here on the weekends and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I'd like to go over is just like the history of. So your parents are from where?
So my mom and dad are from China, and they initially moved to Japan for college. So they were kind of like exchange students. They decided to stay there for like a full 4 years, as opposed to like just a year.
Okay.
And so they had me there.
Where in Japan are they? Where were they?
They were in Yokohama.
Yokohama. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know which college they specifically went to, but it was like somewhere in Yokohama.
Okay.
Yeah, so very close to Tokyo. And then they had me there. My mom stayed there for 18 years before she moved to the States. And so I think she had me like 30 or something. So she's been there for a long time. Actually, longer in Japan than in China, where she was born.
Oh,
That was pretty cool.
and so wait, they just kind of, why did they decide to stay in Japan?
I think it was they wanted to learn Japanese and be part of like the Japanese culture.
Oh. By the way, side note, I see a lot more electric bikes like this.
There's a ton of like Irvine has a bunch of these electric bikes. I saw one time they like blockaded the street. A bunch of these middle schoolers blocked the street.
Oh, really?
And caused like a whole traffic jam along like one of the major. It's like, why? Anyways.
Anyway, back to Japan. Back to Japan. This is how it goes, We'll just talk about random things.
No, I love it. I love it. It's like very impromptu. So they went to Japan just because they wanted to learn the culture. I think my mom's grandfather was like a professor in Japanese as well in China.
Okay.
So I think that was like the motive of just wanting to get out of, the country and explore a little bit. I think she ended up staying because, of like the culture, the friends that she made in college. And I think she just liked living in Japan a little bit better.
And your dad?
My dad, kind of the same story. I mean, after they got married, they kind of like settled down.
And what did they do for work?
My mom, mainly a stay-at-home mom for the most part. My dad was like a mechanic. He worked in a couple like auto shops and whatnot. They ended up getting like a divorce, somewhere midway through. And my mom moved to the States and remarried with like an American guy. So that's like my current stepdad right now. And then there's, they have a little daughter, so my sister. Yeah, and she's 12 right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the dynamic. And so we moved to the States eventually because of the 2011 tsunami that happened in Japan. So that was like the really big like 9.1 whatever earthquake that caused like a huge tsunami.
Yeah, wasn't there some like issues with like
Nuclear, like Fukushima had like a nuclear plant,
Yeah.
and their entire plant melted down because like some cooling system failed. It's like it polluted the water, so that was like a huge issue.
Oh, yeah.
So there's that, and my mom was like, I don't want to eat the fish that
Yeah.
have now been
Yeah.
I'm gonna get it right here.
Okay.
That have now been polluted, and then for you to get like radiation poisoning.
Right.
So I was like, that's fair. Obviously moved over. That's a
I
valid
don't want
reason.
to become a. I mean, maybe I do want to become a mutant. I mean, you might get special powers.
Right, I mean, like growing a third leg isn't a.
By the way, I just want to show this because this is
Yeah.
pretty cool.
It's a great view.
So, tell me a little bit about this place.
Yeah,
What
so
is
this is South Lake. South Lake Middle School is like right over there on that side over the houses.
Okay.
And so every time, every morning I'd pass this lake. There's like another path over there, but really nice walk. There's 2 man-made lakes in Irvine, the Woodbridge area. And so this is like South Lake, that's one of them. Just over that park is North Lake. And so both like man-made areas, but.
What is that thing over there?
Oh, what is it called? It's like a,
Is it like a Ferris wheel?
it's like a shaded area. I think they're remodeling it, but like it used to have like coverings. It's like a nice area to hang out. But it's cool. You can like do kayaking and stuff.
Yeah, this is really cool.
Yeah. But
And this is like, 5-minute walk from where you live.
it is. It's a great walk. There's a path that connects South Lake and North Lake, so you can do like a loop. And it's like just a great afternoon walk,
Wow.
Good spot. Yeah.
Well, cool.
Very lucky to have like these, I guess, scenic experiences, right? It's not
totally.
just like cookie cutter.
All right, hold on. Gotta fix the camera in the back now.
Nice. So like, what extent do you edit these videos? I'm really curious.
I do minimal.
Yeah.
Here we go. I think it's good enough.
Nice.
So like when I was younger, I did a lot of, I was really into editing. But I knew how much time it takes to edit a video. And so I knew that if I spent a lot of time editing the videos,
Yeah.
I would stop making them. Like
Fair.
I just knew it.
Yeah.
So I was telling myself, what can I do to maximize the probability
Right.
that I will make more videos? So I want to make it fun. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm not really going to edit it much. So I think even the first ones, I didn't even have like a title or anything.
Yeah.
And I think by doing that, I kept going.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Nice.
not much editing.
Gotcha.
And then someone else I was interviewing said, there's actually kind of like a nice piece to that because then people they get to know who you really are, Because like, you can show a certain side of you, and me, I wasn't doing it for that purpose.
Right.
I was just doing it for me.
Yeah.
But kind of an added bonus.
Sure. Fair. You can see like the little mistakes and stuff, and like
Yeah.
it does bring character.
I'm just like, but the thing is, these are like 2 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah.
So it's like, who's gonna watch them? There's a few people that actually watch them.
Nice.
There's people who are into like long form podcasts. There's like Lex Friedman.
Yeah.
Andrew Huberman. Those kinds of people. Joe Rogan. So there are people who do like long form podcasts. So.
That's fair. I mean,
Yeah.
kind of leave it on the background, and like it's good to fill in
Yeah.
sometimes, right?
Anyway, so Fukushima.
Yes. Fukushima, nuclear meltdown.
2011.
That's right. We didn't want to eat, radioactive fish, so we moved over to the States. I had an aunt on my mom's side that lived in Sunnyvale,
Sunnyvale
California,
is in the Bay Area.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in Korea, nobody calls it the Bay Area. They call it Silicon Valley.
Silicon Valley.
I know, which is interesting.
That's fair.
Yeah. Anyway.
So Sunnyvale, very close to like Cupertino, California, which is
Yeah.
also in Silicon Valley. I'm pretty sure that's.
Yeah,
a little more
Cupertino is known
common.
for Apple.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cupertino is Apple. So moved over there, and then that's where my mom met my dad, and so that's how like she got a green card, settled down, and went to school there for a couple of years, and then moved down to Irvine, just because I think my stepdad wasn't like an engineer or anything. He's a handyman, and so I think it's really expensive to live in the Bay
Yeah.
if you're not making like engineering salary.
Yeah. When we say engineering salary, you mean like software engineering?
Software engineering, like stuff in tech basically, right? So if you're not in that role, especially like with that area being like really densely populated by like Apple employees,
Yeah.
like it's high
Oh, yeah.
bar. So like they kept raising their rent and whatnot, and so we moved down to SoCal just a little bit. I feel like when you move down to SoCal from NorCal, that's the only time that you can say it's cheaper. That's like NorCal is one of those places where the rent is just insanely high, and so SoCal seemed a little bit more affordable, even though it's definitely not cheap by any means, right?
Yeah.
So moved to Irvine in 8th grade, went to South Lake Middle School for a year,
Okay.
and then I went to Woodbridge High School for
Did you
the
say
remaining
Rich High School?
Woodbridge.
Oh, sorry. I think you said Rich High School.
Rich High School?
Okay, Woodbridge High School. Got
I
it.
think,
Okay.
yeah.
I was like, oh, it's a rich. Thank you for adding that detail.
It's a subtle flex, you know?
Subtle flex.
I gotta insert it. It's clearly I come from wealth, yeah.
It's a very diverse and rich, yeah.
That's right, that's right.
Okay.
But I guess that's where we kind of get into how I met you, right?
Yeah, I do always do like a little intro video. So I just
Perfect.
all I said was I met you and I was very impressed by you.
All right.
But there was a lot I didn't know about you. So let me kind of fill in the gaps.
Please.
So for me,
Yeah.
I was at the time working for Neotax.
Yeah.
And at the time they were, I think, seed stage startup
Right.
in the Bay Area, so Silicon Valley.
Uh-huh.
And I was working remotely, and
Right.
they had a stipend for remote people. So
Nice.
then, I'd like to get like furniture and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I was looking for a nice like chair, because it kind of makes sense. Like I just had like a regular chair, but I'm sitting on it all day.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, man, like my back is hurting, my neck is hurting.
Yep.
So why not invest in a nice chair? So I started researching on Yelp,
Yeah.
like nice chairs or whatever. And there was a company that came up, SaviorBack, and then it got a lot of good reviews.
Right.
It got a lot of good reviews. I was like, oh shoot, okay. So I looked at the website. I was like, okay, it's kind of like an okay website, not like a super professional.
Right.
It's just like okay website. So I was like, okay. I reached out, no answer. And I'm like, what the heck? Why does this guy answer?
Yeah.
Does he want a business? And so it didn't answer. And I'm like, all right, well, whatever. And I was like talking with some other people, and then eventually I did get an answer. And what I remember was just like, all right, cool, yeah, we can do that. Why don't you come over? And I was like, okay, so I'll go.
Yep.
And I was expecting to go to like a store.
Yeah.
And then when I arrived at the address,
Yeah.
it was like, I'm like, am I in the right place? Because it was just a storage unit, just rows and rows of storage unit.
right.
And I'm just like, is this guy gonna like try to kill me? Like,
Kidnap you, right?
yeah, kidnap me, like mug me, and then you're like, oh no, I'm here. And so he opened the gate. I drive in because I'm still in my car, so I know I'm safe.
Right.
And I see you, and this like small Asian kid comes out, and I'm like, hey, I'm Taketo. Hey, let me. And then we go down. I remember we went down into like into storage.
Yep.
We went downstairs, and I'm like, there's still a chance that he might try to kill me.
This is where your life ends.
Yeah. And then it's like this metal door, and you're like, all right. And then you open it, and there's all these chairs in there. And then I was like, oh, what the heck? And so you start going through each chair and sitting down, and it wasn't that you just told me about it. You were a really good salesman. Like you were telling me to sit down, get a feel for it. And like what do you think? I'm like, oh, I like this. And then you start talking about the chair and the details of the chair,
Right.
and all these details that I didn't understand.
Yeah.
And eventually, I liked the chair.
Yeah.
I bought it. And I just remember being so impressed by your ability to like sell that I'm like, dude, we should get in touch. And eventually, I got you the internship with me. But that's my recollection.
Yeah, I pretty much sums it up. I think there's small detail that was really funny in there. I don't know if you remember while we were conversing before you came to the appointment.
Yeah.
I remember I was in class, and so I wasn't texting as quickly as I normally would outside of class.
Oh.
Do you remember you were like, why aren't you replying as fast? Like, this doesn't seem like a very professional business or something like that, right? And then I was like, sorry, I was in class, and you were like, oh shoot. I just thought that was really funny. I remember like we talked about it after we met, and you're like, oh, like that makes a lot more sense.
That's right. I'm like, dude, this guy's unprofessional. Like, why doesn't he respond?
And like, totally valid. I feel like the expectation for the business is that you reply, at least within like an hour or something.
The kicker was, after we met and after you showed me the chairs, that's when I realized that you said, oh, I'm a student. And so I'm like, oh, you must be a college student at UC Irvine.
Right.
And you're like, no, I'm a high school student. And I'm like, what?
I was like 16 at the time.
This is insane. Okay, let's take a pause. I want to talk about this place. All right, so tell me about this place.
So this is Woodbridge Center. Very nostalgic, I think, only because we came here a lot after school or like during lunch. There's a boba place right there called Chaw for Tea with that yellow leaf over there, kind of covered up by the tents.
Yeah,
we'd always go there. There's like a student deal for chicken plus boba for like $5.
Okay.
So really nostalgic. We just come here a lot after school. It's a great hangout spot. A lot of kids here right now, but
Yeah.
I'm sure we can find like a quiet space to sit down.
Yeah, there's a ton of families here.
Yeah. It's really nice. A lot of restaurants and stuff. There's like a build your own pizza place right behind you.
Oh, wow. Oh yeah, organic coffee and all that. Yeah, I think this would like be pretty interesting for people who, are, don't live here. It's their first time here in Irvine.
That's true. Your primary audience is like people in Korea?
It's that and the U.S. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think Irvine. A lot of Irvine is like pre-planned in the sense that like there's like a bunch of condos plus a shopping district plus like a school. It's like it's that pattern over and over again.
Yeah.
So a lot of the condos will look the same, but like this is one of those like more unique looking like hangout areas.
Yeah.
It's a little bit.
Well, walk around. All right. Oh, there's a yogurt land here. There we go.
And very classic. I used to steal their samples a lot.
It's not stealing. They allow you to take the samples.
Right. I mean, it was just maybe a bit too far. I remember they put a little sign. They were like, "We caught you. Stop taking samples."
Yeah, look
that's
at that.
North Lake over
Water.
there. So that's
Very
the
cool.
other man-made lake, North Lake.
Man-made lake. Okay, very cool.
Yeah, super nice. This is new. I haven't seen this before.
Yeah, it's like a sink container.
Yeah.
Very cool.
But yeah, cool area. Looks like they're filming something over there too, maybe.
All right, so let's turn around. All right, so let's look for a spot
Yeah.
where we can hang out. But I mean, it's no rush too.
Sure.
It's no rush. Darn it, the base tracking turned off, so now I have to like match you up manually.
Oh no.
It's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
Chairs.
Yeah. So anyway, so I met you, and then and I remember after we met, we were outside because you're like, okay, I'll give it to you. Let's put it in your car.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking, so maybe a thing that you didn't know was, I think it was like a week before we had met.
Yeah.
I went to a bunch of my MBA friends, business school friends. We went out for a camping trip, and one friend in particular, he was telling me about he did a startup, and his co-founder was really good, had like a superpower of hiring young people who had like no experience, but they just have so much potential. And he was just talking about how like it's so awesome because nobody knows their potential yet. You get them real cheap, but then you just let them loose and they do amazing things. So that was actually in the back of my mind of like young people, and look for people who have crazy potential but may not have a lot of experience. And then I met you. And so because of that, I was like, I can't let Taketo go. Like I gotta figure out a way to, because I think at the time I was like, maybe we can just like, I'm happy to like mentor you or something. I just want to help you somehow. I just want to be a part of your journey.
Right.
And then we were able to get the internship.
Well, I mean, that was huge. I mean, I'm still in Neotex now. So
I know, that's crazy.
It's been a really
I'm not even there.
For a place to sit, we can like, honestly, that shaded area that was next to the lake, we could just go there.
Let's go.
It's a little bit more quiet probably than here.
I'll just follow you.
Yeah. Great. So we walked a little extra, but we can walk all the way back.
Okay. So now that we talked about that, why don't you tell me about talk to me about your business and like the history of that, because by the way, the channel is called Learning Entrepreneur. So the idea is that a lot of people think I'm not an entrepreneur. Even if they started their business or they just have an idea, they're afraid to execute, or they executed but they're not getting the crazy results like Elon Musk. So they feel like a lot of imposter syndrome.
Right.
So the point is, look, I think you're an entrepreneur if you're like, it's like a mindset. You're just learning. You're just trying things, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I like to tell a lot of people stories. Have you done something like this before? Have you told your story before?
Not formally. I think in bits and pieces whenever, like customers will come and they'll want to hear like the orders.
No. I mean like on a podcast.
No, I haven't.
Yes.
Yeah, first time.
Yes. The majority of people that I talk to, it's their first time of being on camera.
Oh, wow.
So I like kind of, I like to share the stories of those who, like they may not, like the famous people, they'll be on podcasts, but I like talking to like the underdogs or like the kind of, you know, quiet stories.
It's like pretty much who I am, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, fair.
All right. Where? By the way, I'm just following you.
No, it's just going back exactly where we came from.
Okay. Cool. All right.
So the origin story.
Origin story.
SaviorBack started initially.
By the way, SaviorBack is SaviorBack.
BACK.
Like Jesus Savior.
Jesus SaviorBack.
Yeah,
that's right.
SaviorBack.
That's right.
Okay.
It took me 3 days to think of that name. I was gonna go with like Taketo's chairs or something. I'm like, that's so lame. That's so lame. I'm like, I have no significance versus like Savior, like Jesus is Savior.
T chairs. I think that was pretty cool.
That's true. Yeah.
It would have been good. Okay. All right.
So it initially started from, well, it started from simply the need during COVID of people, well, especially office workers that were working from home. And pretty much over a weekend, right? It was, for most companies, it was like on a Friday they went home, and then on Monday they were like work from home indefinitely. And they're sitting on these crappy dining room chairs. And I myself was like a student, I think sophomore, junior at the time in high school.
In high school. Okay.
And I came home on weekend, and then it was just work from home right after that. And so I was sitting on this crappy IKEA chair. And I was like, there's no way I can have back problems at 16. And I did have back problems at 16 because I was doing Zoom calls, you know, for classes for like 6, 7, 8 hours a day. And I think, I mean, that just takes a toll on anybody, right? Especially when you're sitting on a crappy chair. And so I was experiencing back problems. And so I went out, I was doing all this research on chairs, and I realized, you know, because of COVID, all these showrooms are closed. There's
can
nowhere.
you explain that a little bit? Showrooms?
Yes. So typically when the chairs that we focus on are pretty high end. So either Steelcase or Herman Miller, those are the two main brands.
So can you just people who are listening, they may not they might not know who they are.
Right. Steelcase is a brand based in Michigan, so is Herman Miller, but they specialize in office furniture, so like high-end office furniture. They focus primarily on ergonomic chairs, but they also do like cabinets or like desks. So you might see them like laying around, you know, just offices. But they're high-end in the sense that they offer a lot of adjustability, a lot of customization, and the quality is really high as well. And so the idea is, you know, if you're sitting in a chair for 8, 9, 10 hours a day, you probably want to get something that's a little bit better than like your typical, you know, $200 office chair, because you're using it for 40 hours a week, right? I always tell people, like, you drive a car for an hour or two a day and you spend 40, 50, 60 grand on it. You know, for a chair, if you're going to skimp out on it and save like $500, $600, it just doesn't make sense, right? You're sacrificing your health a lot. And so,
by the way, I just want to make a comment that, like, I remember you saying that now that we're talking about this, I remember you telling me this, and I'm just like, your sales style is very kind of just like genuine, kind of matter of fact. You're not like, oh, and this chair is amazing. Like, it's not really hyperbolic. You're not exaggerating. You're just kind of like, hey, this is kind of like just common sense.
Right.
And I remember listening to you, I'm like, oh yeah, that does make sense. Like, that makes a lot of sense.
I think that was definitely trained, you know, from like selling to hundreds of people, but it's also, you know, stems from the fact that I went through this entire journey myself as like someone looking for a nice chair. And so, you know, it wasn't that I developed this random sales pitch just out of nowhere. It was from my own experiences plus the experiences of, you know, informing clients of like, what do they really want to know, right? As opposed to like just what's on the info page of like a chair website. So I think that's really what I try to focus on during that sales pitch.
So, sorry, go ahead, keep going.
So people needed chairs, they didn't have a place to find them. And so typically when you go and look for a really expensive chair, it's kind of like test driving cars, right? You don't just buy one online and pick it up and you're done. With Teslas, maybe. Right?
Tesla.
But even like Teslas, you still like want to test drive it and whatever. So more like a traditional car, you want to go to the dealerships, try the chairs out, see what you like, compare the different models, right? So same with chairs. Typically you would go into like a showroom from Steelcase or Herman Miller and test the models, see what you like, and then maybe order online, buy it used, whatever it might be.
I see.
And those showrooms were closed because during COVID, all the, you know, like brick and mortar stores are closed. And so how do you test these chairs, right? How do you test drive? How do you buy a car without test driving it? It was like the dilemma. And so, again, same dilemma that I had while looking for a chair for myself. So I started by basically going out, looking at kind of the really popular models, right? So like Herman Miller Aeron, for example, is a name that, you know, some people might recognize. It's probably the most common office chair from Herman Miller, very, very well known. They have like an exhibit in like MoMA or something in New York City. So like it's very well known, right? So like I got one of those and like one other Steelcase bottle maybe, stuck it in my living room and just listed it online. I think people found that it was really helpful to have a space where they could compare more than just one model and see the difference between the two and then make an informed decision, right? Essentially having like a showroom area that was open and being able to actually test chairs as opposed to just, you know, buying a chair without being informed. I think the other thing was you'll typically have Herman Miller showrooms and Steelcase showrooms, but you'll never have a showroom that combines both brands because they're competitors, right? So there's never going to be like an official showroom that combines both brands. And so you're never going to be able to sit on both at the same time and compare, which I think is really important, right? So that's what we offered. And in terms of like the type of inventory, we primarily have pre-owned chairs. And so initially I started off by buying from like individuals and whatnot, right? And I think that started to snowball a little bit more. And then it really went on to contacting like offices, liquidators, buying more in bulk.
So I think liquidators, what are?
Liquidators typically will, when an office goes out of business or they want to refurnish the entire space, liquidators will go in and take all the furniture out and then put new furniture in. And through that process of taking the chairs or like all the furniture out, they'll also take the nice office chairs, right? And they'll want to sell it piece by piece to other vendors at a marked up price. And so actually I found this out as I was like talking to offices and whatnot, but offices actually pay liquidators to get rid of these like really nice pieces of office furniture. And so I, you know, occasionally go to liquidators directly and be like, hey, can I buy these office chairs from you? But I'll also go to the offices directly and be like, hey, can I pay you instead of you having to pay these liquidators to take these office chairs away? I'll pay you instead and just let me take the office chairs. And so, sounds pretty easy, right? But it's like, I think the hard part was finding offices that were actually trying to get rid of chairs and offices that had the right kind of chairs. Because a lot of offices had like, you know, lower end office chairs, and we don't really deal with that. Because I think the primary clientele for us, at least, were individuals that were working from home and they were looking for that high-end brand of office chairs, right? And so if we were to get like chairs over $200-300, that's not gonna sell quite as well. And also we're not as comfortable selling those because we know they're not gonna last as long and they're also not gonna provide the quality, right, over the years.
So I'm realizing one thing that you didn't mention is, what is the average price range of the chairs that you sell? Because you just mentioned $200 to $300 as being cheap, where our listeners could be like, dang, that's an expensive chair.
Fair. The Herman Millers are going to be a little bit more expensive than the Steelcase, but typically for both brands, you're looking at a range from around like maybe $700 to $800 to $2,500. So that's a big spread, but I mean, spending like more than $1,000 on a chair is kind of crazy, right? Again, I always tell people, like, it does work out. In the long run, these chairs are supposed to last like 15, 20 years. And so you're sitting on a nicer chair for less cost per day. And so it's like, it does work out in the end. And it is a good investment in the sense that you're not gonna have to worry about any health implications either, right? It's like, you can't really put a price tag on that.
I think that was like the hardest thing to wrap my head around, which was the idea of paying so much for a chair. But the point is that you went after the high end of the market.
Yes.
I mean, not the ultra high, but this is quite high end.
It's pretty premium, yeah. I mean, your average chair is what, like $100, $150 maybe from Staples?
I mean, cheaper than that. Like, you can go to IKEA and buy like a $20, $30 chair.
Exactly. So when you're looking at a chair that's like hundreds and like sometimes it definitely dips into like the thousands of dollar range, it's kind of like sticker shock for sure.
I think the one that I got...
is it the Gesture?
I'm trying to remember. I remember it kind of folded in, and then I think it was Steelcase?
Steelcase. It had a high back, right?
I think so, but it didn't have a head.
Right, no headrest.
And then I think originally you were thinking, it originally goes for like $1,200, $1,500, something like that. But I remember you sold it to me for like $750? Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, we haven't raised the price since then. Isn't that great?
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, are you still doing it?
Yeah.
Wow, you're still doing it?
Yeah. I was there this afternoon, actually.
Oh, really?
So this is like kind of deviating, but I'm gonna study abroad very soon.
Oh, really?
And so I've had a guy that's been selling, the chairs for me for a while, which is great. Like it's really hands off for me. I just realized, is that place under construction? We can sit on one of these benches.
Yeah.
But I'm studying abroad in Milan, and so I'm not gonna be here for like 4 or 5 months. So I need to get a bunch of chairs ready so there's like enough inventory to sell.
Yeah.
It's definitely not as crazy as it was during like peak COVID.
Yeah.
Right now, maybe going at like 30 to 40 a month. But during peak COVID, it like crossed like 120 or like 130 chairs in a month.
Yeah, I mean, so by the way, what were some of the numbers that you were making?
Yeah.
Because I think that's the part that also surprised me.
Yeah. So I think like year to date, it's been like what 3-4 years. We're at like 1.5, 1.6 million revenue.
That's crazy.
I think during peak, I remember we made like 500K one year or something, or like 600K or something.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And then of that, what's your margin?
It's typically around like 40-ish%.
That's crazy.
After I hired the sales guy, it's been around like 30, but I'm still definitely not bad.
Yeah, that is insane.
Yeah. What was I saying before study abroad?
Milan.
Milan.
All right, hold on. Let me, let's transition over. We're good.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear the audio.
Awesome.
So anyway.
We're talking about numbers, right?
Oh, yeah. So you were saying, yeah.
So I think during peak COVID, so like 2023-ish, we probably did like 600K.
It's crazy.
From selling chairs. I remember there was one Christmas sale that we did, and we ran it from, I say we, but it was like me.
I know. That's why I was like, you keep saying we, like who are you talking about?
This is pre like, sales guy. So it was just me. Started at 9 a.m. and we ran it till like 10 or like 11 p.m. And this is when I was still in my garage. And so we had people every 15 minutes. And in hindsight, I'm like, this is a terrible idea because not only are people running early, running late, they're also taking a lot more time than 15 minutes, right? But I mean, I thought the idea was run a sale so that like cram as many people in as possible, I guess, during that sale period. And like, I'll just figure it out. Yeah. I think that's one of the things of like being like an entrepreneur type of thing.
I was about to say, I wanted to kind of dive deeper into that because like, I feel like you've never sold chairs. Like you're not like, when you were 7, you were like, I want to sell chairs, high premium chairs. Like this simply happened because it was like a gaming chair or something like that. Like you were looking for like a gaming chair.
I wanted just a nicer chair and I stumbled on a Herman Miller without even knowing it. I got it for like 20 bucks. And so it was someone that was moving out of the country and they were like, I just need to get rid of all my stuff, right? So they sold it for me for 20 bucks and I'm like, this looks really familiar to like this other chair that I've been looking at online. And it turns out it was the same chair that retailed for like $850. So a week later, I turned around and sold that exact same chair. I didn't even do anything to it, maybe like wipe the wheels down a little bit. And it sold for like $330.
Crazy.
And I was like, this is crazy, right? I'm like, this is like more than 10x my money, way more than 10x, like 15x my money. How is this repeatable? Like, is there something here that maybe like I'm not quite grasping? Like, is there something here?
See, I think what the curious part is like the average person, I don't know if they would have even knew it was a Herman Miller, but even if they knew it was a Herman Miller and they're like, well, they wouldn't think about like creating a business, they'd just be like, oh sweet, I got a really good chair, and then they might flip it. And even if they flipped it and sold it for, $350, and they're like, wow, I bought it for 20. I sold it for $350. I just made $320, $330. This is amazing. I'm now going to, spend that money elsewhere.
Yeah.
But you went a different direction.
Right.
Like, why?
I feel like you mentioned that this whole entrepreneurship thing is more of like a mindset, and I do definitely agree with that, right? It's like the way that you approach life is in like that, with that like business vision, like constantly. It's not just while you're working you have this vision, but then while you're living life it's like turned off, right? I think that was one of those things where it's like, if I'm able to make 15x on this random chair thing, like, is it repeatable? Can I scale this up? Is there any way for me to like just like make more money?
So at the time, was that the primary motivation?
I think it was, and there was like an event that happened before that like kind of motivated me and like gave me a lot of like hunger for like just like earning more. It's that, you know, like as a high school student, I didn't have a full-time job. I was like 15 then when I started the business. And so I had like a couple $100 in my bank account maybe. And I remember I got scammed for like AirPods online.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah. This is very, very early on. But I got scammed for these AirPods. And like by the way, like don't fall for these Zelle scams of like send them the money and then they'll ship it to you later.
Wait, so you saw an ad online and it's like, hey, send me
X amount of money.
$150 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I'll ship it to you.
Exactly. And it wasn't like on eBay where it's like guaranteed, right? And so, but like I was 15, I didn't know anything at the time. I've never been scammed before. So very, very naive. Obviously hindsight, it's you know, whatever, kind of stupid. But one of those moments, right? And so I got scammed for, you think it's just $150. No, they were like, oh, it didn't go through, send it again.
Oh no.
So I sent it again. Now it's 300, right? And I sent it again.
You sent it 3 times?
I sent it 3 times. And so I was scammed for $450. And I'm like, my life is over. Like I had like $600 in the bank account. I'm like my life is over. I just lost all of my money and I'm never gonna recover from this. I'm like, it's over. My life is over.
Did you tell people? Anyone?
No. I mean, how do you?
Wait, you didn't tell your parents?
No. I mean, I remember I was frantically calling like Bank of America and being like, please, can you get my money back? And obviously it didn't really work out, right? Because it's not, Bank of America is only like facilitating the transaction. They're not holding the money at all. It's like direct transfer basically, right, with Zelle. So that was like the motivating event, I would say. It was just like, I was like, I need to make that money back or else like my life is over.
Wow, I did not know this, dude.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think that was obviously the initial motivation, right? Was like, I saw this opportunity, I was like, is it repeatable? And even before the whole like chairs thing, I was trying to like sell things that I had, you know, like Pokemon cards or whatever.
To make up the $450 that you lost?
Yeah. And like nothing was working like as well as the chairs did.
Okay, wait, actually, this is a great point. Because I feel like some entrepreneurs get super married to one idea. They're like, I'm gonna do this. They think about it for years. I'm gonna do this, that, and then they're strategizing, but they're not doing anything. They're not doing anything. But for you, like, what are some of the other things that you did before the chairs?
Yeah.
Is it Pokemon card?
Yeah, so I had a bunch of Pokemon cards. I was like, I'm out of my Pokemon card phase. Let me just sell it online.
Okay.
And I think that's always a good place to start for people that are looking for like something to do or like a little bit of extra cash. It's like you have a lot of unused things in your house, right?
Yeah.
Try to see how you can sell it and even like, you know, do a little bit more research. Like, is this specific item worth more than like a typical, you know, whatever Pokemon card, right? Like, can you sell it for more? Can you get it authenticated? Is that increase the value of the Pokemon card, right? Or I remember there are these like Gundam sets.
Yeah, the Gundam, the robot.
Yeah. That like you have to piece together yourself, kind of like Legos.
Yeah.
A little bit different. I had a bunch of those sets from Japan from like a previous trip, and they're like significantly marked up in the States because they're produced in Japan, right? So I bought it in Japan, so I was like, oh, I can make like an extra like $10, $20 off of this, right? It's not huge, but it was like there's definitely some value there. So I started experimenting with that. I think I remember I was trying to tutor kids, specifically with like math or like science.
What was the time span here? Like you lost the money when, and then like when did you meet the chairs thing?
When did I start the chairs? I think lockdown was in April.
Yeah.
So probably like June was when I started the chairs.
And when were you scammed?
In maybe like, this was pre-lockdown, it was probably like February maybe. It was for my birthday, I remember, because I was looking for AirPods for my like own birthday, because I was like, I really want AirPods. No. And I feel like I deserve some AirPods. Really, really tragic story. I mean, I think in hindsight, I'm glad I got scammed for $450 and not thousands of dollars, right?
So that's crazy because you were scammed for, I mean, I'm not even talking about that.
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about like in the future you could have been scammed even worse.
Yeah.
I'm thinking you were scammed $450 and yet that turned into eventually a business that made over $2 million, $3 million in sales.
1.5.
1.5 million in revenue.
Yeah.
That was my takeaway.
Right. Fair. Yeah. I mean, it's like, I think it's hard to see the other side of the story sometimes, and it's like how can there be a positive side to getting scammed?
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, I think that definitely was like a major factor. Like, I don't know if I would have gone down the same route if there wasn't this like intrinsic motivation, like hey, I have to make this money back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like those are some of the things that I tried before. Chairs, like selling stuff that I had, and not
tutoring.
just like, and tutoring.
Sorry, not selling, not just
like selling the object for what it is, but like doing a little bit more research, seeing if I could like manipulate it to get a little bit more, right, for the specific object. Like just looking for like true value of like Pokemon cards or like whatever I had. So I think that definitely helped. I was looking into like building PCs as well. I wasn't like very experienced. I think I sold like one PC. I was like, that's all right.
But the fact that you actually, like, this is the thing that I can't get over, because there's so many entrepreneurs who talk a lot. Like they're like, hey, I want this, I want that, but they don't execute.
Yeah.
When oftentimes the action is just like, it could be very small step. Like what you said, someone could have an idea of building a PC.
Yeah.
But then you have to like think about it, and then you actually have to build it, and then you actually have to make a sale, and then you have to negotiate it. So like the fact that you sold one PC, how many Pokemon cards did you sell?
There's probably like 10 to 15 transactions probably.
10 to 15 transactions.
100 cards probably.
That's insane. Okay, so what else did you try?
I'm trying to think back. It's been a while. I taught violin.
Top violin.
So I played violin. And so I was teaching like little elementary school kids, and there was also people in my orchestra that were like in elementary school that I was also tutoring for violin.
And none of this was done before you got scammed?
This was, I think the violin thing was maybe like
so you were doing that
perpetually, but then like the whole tutoring and like Pokemon cards thing and like the Gundam sets, those were after I got scammed in like February.
How did that make you feel when you realized you were scammed? So you mentioned you thought it was like the end of the world.
I thought it was the end of the world.
What do you mean by that?
Like, I think it was especially, the amount itself was like, it's obviously a large part of like what I had, but it was also sentimental in the sense that like I got it from my grandma. And so I think it wasn't just like $450. It was like $450 from my grandma before like she passed away.
Oh, dang.
So, yeah, like that was kind of a heavy hitter, you know?
Wow.
Yeah. So I think definitely a lot of, like that was like a lot of drive for me. It was just like, I don't want to disappoint her in that regard. And like, it's the last thing she left me kind of thing.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so I remember, so you sold the chair, and then you're like, hey, is this repeatable?
Yeah.
And what happened next?
Well, I got it from an individual, right? So I'm like, let me just do exactly what I did. Let me go on OfferUp, Facebook Marketplace. Let me look for people that are selling chairs.
Oh, by the way, OfferUp
yes.
is it Marketplace?
Yes. So maybe Facebook Marketplace is familiar to some people, but OfferUp is very similar to that in that it's like a secondhand marketplace where you can post things that you're trying to sell, and other people, there are buyers that come and see those listings, and you know, they'll typically like try to negotiate the price a little bit, but you can sell it to other people that are looking to buy that specific object. So OfferUp is one of those places. There's like another, like Letgo, like Mercari.
Yeah, that was the other competitor.
Yeah.
And I think what's really nice is at the time I remember specifically they were mobile first. So OfferUp, they had an app. It was very easy. Like take a picture, you upload it, and I used OfferUp too, and I was surprised. Like within an hour, I started getting pings. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like magic. Like,
exactly. It's great for visibility. I will say OfferUp is also where I got scammed. So
that's where you got scammed.
Yeah. There's like two sides of the coin. You got to be careful of like the scammers, but it's also a great opportunity for you to like, you know, start small and just like list some things.
So you went on OfferUp, you were looking for that specific chair.
Exactly. And so you can't search up specifically for like Herman Miller because the person selling it doesn't know that it's Herman Miller, right? So it's like you have to search up office chair and you just scroll and you look like for the pictures. And so after like a week or two.
Yeah, so let's say you're scrolling. Okay, if you want to find one Herman Miller chair out of office chair, so basically the person doesn't know they're holding on to this expensive chair.
Exactly.
how many, do you have to scroll through like 10, 20?
Hundreds.
Hundreds.
I would scroll through the entire catalog of office chairs in Southern California every single day.
Dang. How long would this take?
It would take me like a good 45 to an hour because I'm like scrolling at a solid pace. I'm looking for like the general shape of the chair.
Holy crap.
And I think you get really good at identifying like what is a Herman Miller steel case and what isn't. It's just like it comes with practice, right?
So I think that is a good point. It's like
Yeah.
a part of it is having the courage to actually do something. And so kind of one part is having a motivation.
Right.
So you had that strong motivation because
Exactly.
your grandma
Yeah.
is like, that bastard, I'm gonna get it back. And then that led to trying all these things.
Yeah.
But but you had persistence, like you had grit, and that led to multiple, like you scrolling, and you're doing this for about 45 minutes to an hour.
A day.
Every day?
Every day.
Are we just talking about weekdays? Or
We're talking about every single day.
7 days a week?
Yeah, yeah. And then, so it took me like 3 or 4 days before I found my next deal. And they posted it 15 minutes prior to me looking, seeing the listing. And so I think one of the other things was there was like 2 or 3 other people that had caught on, right? And so I noticed that I was competing with these 2 or 3 other like random people. I don't know who they are, but they were also catching on to like the whole chair thing. And so it was like if you weren't at the location within 45 minutes, an hour of the posting, like it was gone.
Wow.
Right? So what I had to start doing was the second chair that I got, initially it was posted at $25. But instead of offering 25 or like lowballing at like 20, I offered 50. Because I knew that the upside was like potentially like an extra $300-400, right? And so it's like I'm not gonna like be super petty over the extra $25 and lose that potential.
But were you
chair.
scared that if you offered $50
Yeah.
when the person was selling for 20 or 30,
Yeah.
were you scared that he'd be like, well, why is this guy offering me more money?
There was like a couple times that they questioned it, but I was just like, I really need the chair.
Oh, nice.
I really need a chair. I'm happy to offer more. I can come right now, right? It was nice that I had my driver's license. Really nice that I had my driver's license. So like I would drive there like whatever time of day. Like I remember I went out at like 1, 2 a.m. once.
And so when you're doing this,
Yeah.
like I remember asking you when I first met you, I was like, how much are your parents helping you?
Yeah,
And you're like, they're not.
yeah,
Like, this is all me.
right. Well, I mean, I think technically if you think about it, I think I will preface and say that, you know, I'm very fortunate to have like a car that I could use living in Irvine where I don't have to worry too much about rent. Like parents were pretty supportive. They didn't like stop me from doing the business. So it was like, if you get good grades, like you can continue. And so like, I think those factors are really important to consider, right? But if you're thinking about purely like building the business up from like the ground up, it was like $20. Because it was that first initial chair, that was $20, and that was like my startup costs. I didn't really use any other resources other than like the car that my parents had. So yeah, I didn't receive too much help from my parents throughout this like entire time.
I think the thing that was mind-blowing is I remember when we first met, you were talking about how you were going to these liquidators and you have to get a bunch of chairs.
Yeah.
So let's say a liquidator has like 10, 15, 20, whatever, 20, 30 chairs. Your car obviously can't fit this all.
Yeah.
So I think you told me that you would go and rent like U-Haul trucks or something.
Yeah.
And then you would go there,
Yeah.
coordinate with the person, you move the chairs. Then you have to move those chairs to your storage facility because you're not taking it to your home.
Right.
And then you have to return so you're doing all of this on your own.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a lot of like manual labor actually. It wasn't just like, oh, the chairs come ready and you just gotta hand it to the person that's waiting at the other end. Sometimes these chairs would like have stains on them or whatever, so it's like that's something that we have to check on site. Like, do we want it? Do we reject it? How do we deal with that, right?
And you keep saying we right now, but at the time it was me.
It was me. I've gotten used to saying we, partly because I feel like as like a company or like an entity, right, having more individuals makes you seem more legit.
Yeah.
And so I got so used to saying we, but no, like this is me at the time.
I think that is a good point, like, because kind of entrepreneurs, they do hear like when you start off, try not to say me, because then the client or the customer is like, am I just selling to you?
Right.
But if you say we, it builds this perception that I'm a solid company.
Yeah.
Which is something you picked up on when you were starting.
Yeah, exactly. And it could have been just like a initial like subconscious thing as well, just from talking to clients. But I definitely noticed myself saying like we a lot more like a little bit later on.
And now it's a legitimate we because you hired somebody.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, where were we at? Liquidators.
Yeah. So I mean, So this just kind of kept going, and you were doing this at the same time as this is a side gig. This is not your main gig.
Not my main. My main
your
gig
high school.
I'm a student.
Yeah, you're a student.
Yeah. So that was my main gig. I will say I was definitely spending more time on the chairs. So I think on top of school, the chairs itself maybe like 50 hours a week, something like that.
Wow.
Primarily on the weekends, I've made several trips up to like the Bay Area, which is like what, like a 6-7 hour drive.
Yeah.
And then all the way back as well, just to get like chairs.
Just to get chairs?
Yeah, multiple times. I go to like the Santa Barbara area a lot for chairs.
Oh my gosh.
That's like a 3-hour drive.
So it's interesting, in Korea, it's like driving an hour is considered a very far trip.
Oh really?
So when they hear like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours, they're just like, that's insane.
It is.
Whereas I feel like in Southern California, it's far. It's definitely far. I think it is very far, but it's just like, okay. But people in Korea, if they're listening, they're just like, that's insane. You drove for, it's not just 6-7 hours, that's one way. So round trip is 12 to 14 hours driving.
Yeah. And I would do that in a day.
And then you have like school.
Yeah. So it was a lot of like, if not manual, like just a lot of work, that like time commitment to this whole like chair thing before it became self-sustaining. And so I think when people look at it like now, they're like, oh, like it must be really nice just having someone sell chairs. Yeah. I think there was a lot of like things that I needed to set up beforehand, a lot of like processes, even from like an operational standpoint, just to make sure that.
Is there an example that you can think of?
Yeah, it's like, how do you, like, I had to define to the sales guy, like, what's the customer journey of like, from someone looking for a chair to like buying a chair, and then even like follow up, right, of like warranty and stuff. And so like, how do you deal with a warranty case? Like I had to define that, right, write it out in a manual. And so I think when you start writing out all of these aspects of like your business and detailing it down, I think you start to realize how many things you've internally like built into your routine, but you haven't consciously like written it down, right? So like I write it down, and then it just gets longer and longer and longer and longer, and I have this like whatever page manual that's just like super in depth. But yeah, I think my point was like, there's a lot of things that you learn on the fly that you don't realize, but then once you start to document it, I think there's a lot of components to business that like, it's like hard to teach too, right?
I mean, I think it's like two things I noticed is, number one, I think it's exactly that, like, especially kind of in nowadays, like people, they're like, I got to $0 to, $100,000 in monthly recurring revenue, and this is how I did it. And people are really looking for the get quick, get rich schemes. And I think the reality to most of them, vast majority of businesses, is there is a boring and tedious and hard, laborious part, and you can't get around that.
Right.
Because I think for number one, because you're a startup, you have to start from nowhere. You're competing against much bigger competitors, so you have to do that much more work.
Yeah.
But I think in addition to your point, you have to do it yourself in order to develop an opinion. Yeah. Like warranty, I don't know. And then you can develop a theory, but then to actually do it yourself and talk to the customer and see their face when they're like, hey, what the heck? Like, I think I remember I mentioned to you, like there was something like a stain or something on my chair. And then you're like, hey, do you want to replace it? I'm like, nah, that's fine. But to have those interactions so that you develop confidence in your opinion. You're like, this is our stance on when we give warranties and when we don't.
Right.
And it's not just a theoretical thing. It's based off of talking to lots and lots and lots and lots of customers.
Yeah, it is. And specifically on warranty, it's like you might have this, great master plan of how do we want to deal with warranty? Like when do we give it out, when do we not? And it's like when you put it into practice, you're going to notice that most times like it doesn't work, right? It's like, great, you have a stain, you weren't going to give a warranty. What if they're really insistent on like getting this fixed, otherwise they're going to return the chair. How do you deal with that, right? Maybe you don't have like a scenario for that. And so you can have an initial plan, that's great. But I think at the end of the day, having a rougher plan and just going into it and figuring out the kinks or whatever on the fly is much better than trying to perfect this plan and never really doing anything about it, right?
And I think like that's the difference between a worker and an owner mentality. It's like a worker mentality is like, oh, it's not in the manual. I don't really know what to do. I'll just kind of hang out. Whereas an owner mentality is like, well, we got to get done. Like we have to figure something out, right? Like, do you feel like you developed that ownership mentality over time, or do you think that you've always had it since when you were young?
I feel like I definitely had it as a kid as well, in the sense that I wanted to do everything myself. I think it was hard for me to leave aspects of like whatever I was doing up to other people that I could have done myself. And I think I definitely built it up more though through SaviorBack, just because, I mean, if I'm not going to do it, who else is going to?
Yeah, I mean, you're literally, it's just you.
Yeah, it's literally just me. And so it's like, I have to touch everything that I do. And so I might as well do a good job at it, right?
At what point did you realize, like, because it's obviously nice to do it on your own because you get to keep all the profit, but why did you decide to want to hire somebody?
I would say part of it was I was looking to expand into another location. Probably the primary driver was that I was starting college and that I wasn't going to be in Irvine for most of the weekday pretty much, right? I might come back every weekend, but then I was like, do I really want to come back every weekend as well? Like, I want to enjoy campus life, and you know, I'm paying for college. I got to enjoy.
Right. And where'd you end up going?
Right? Claremont McKenna College. It's a small liberal arts college in the Claremont area.
Where were some of the other places that you were looking at?
I was looking at some schools on the East Coast, like BU, Northeastern.
In Northeastern, I just they have a co-op program.
Yeah.
And I heard they got a lot more applications recently, in recent years.
They did, and I think the controversial thing was that, like, because they took so many applications, they actually over-admitted. And so they, like, sent a bunch of people to Europe for their first semester of college, which I was like, I don't know if that's necessarily a great, you know, first semester. Is like, you want to get incorporated into the campus first, like get to know the programs first before you go abroad. Yeah. Versus like they didn't have enough housing, and so they just like shipped a bunch of people to Europe. So I was like, a little controversial.
Yeah, okay.
Northeastern, I think definitely the UCs. I wasn't a very like do a lot of research on college application type of kid. So I was just like, I'll just go to UC or like maybe like an East Coast school if they give me enough money. And then my friend recommended Claremont McKenna College. I'm like, what is this community college? Like, what is this random, you know, college that my friend talked about? And so I looked into it a little bit, and he's like, oh, it's really good at econ. So I was like, oh, I'll apply. And when I was applying, there was this section for early decision. And I was like, what the heck is early decision? And so I looked it up, and it was early decision 2. And for ED2, I searched up on Google, and it was like, oh, it increases your chances of admission. I was like, oh, great, let me apply for it. What I didn't look was like that little like see more section that you can click on a link, like a Google site sometimes. And the second sentence is that, but if you get accepted, you're bound to the school. Like you have to go to the school. That's why it's higher chances of going, right? So I didn't see that second part. And so I applied, and they like waived my admission fee and everything. So I was like, oh, this is great. So in like mid-February, I get a letter from Claremont McKenna College, and they're like, oh, congratulations, you've been accepted. I'm like, what is this school? I don't even remember applying to this school. And I open it, and you know, it's like the acceptance letter, and it's mid-February. You're supposed to get your decision letter in like March, right? Maybe like early April. And so I wasn't expecting it, but early decision, like you have to go, right? I had no choice. But I think now that I look back on it, they're a really good choice. I think they're really econ, like business heavy. And so like people there have the same sort of mindset that I do. And it's also a much more concentrated cohort. There's like 300 kids in our year. So very, very small cohort. You get to know everyone.
How many of them had a business like yours?
There was like one person that sells makeup, sold like makeup products in Bangladesh. One guy had like a talent management and like agency.
Seems like you're the top dog though.
It was like definitely the most unique business.
I'll take that as you're at the top dog.
maybe top 3. But yeah, I think like going back to the chair business, right? I think going to college, I was like, I can't go back to Irvine anymore as frequently. But
How
I still
far
want to
is
continue.
Claremont
It's about
McKenna?
a 45-minute drive, so like hour and a half round trip, right? With traffic like 2.
Okay.
So I couldn't do it every weekend. And so in my junior year, end of junior year, like early senior year, I was like, hey, let me look for someone to sell the chairs for me, right? And that was like a whole other challenge. It's like if you're managing everything yourself, you have everything in your control, like you have a standard for how you want to do things, what you expect. But then when you introduce someone else into the equation, it's like, I don't think they're never gonna match your standard of results. They might exceed in some areas, they might not exceed in some areas, but it's like the standard that you set for yourself is not going to be the production quality of this other individual that you not added, especially not earlier on, right? And so I think that's one thing that I struggled with, was that like maybe his closing rate wasn't as high as mine, or he wasn't responding to customers as well as maybe I would have liked to. And so I think that's something that I struggled with when I was trying to train this individual. And like even before this specific individual, there was like 3-4 other people, like college students that I tried to train, and did not work out very well.
Was there like a common pattern?
I think it was lack of communication skills. Being able to communicate your ideas effectively and think on the fly, I think was something that lacked in college students.
Like, can you give me an example?
Yeah, so I think with sales in general, right? I think starting off with we're good?
Oh yeah, go ahead. I'm just trying to lock the...
Starting off with a manual or like a play-by-play is good, right? I mean, it's like, how else do you start? But I think eventually you have to deviate from that somehow and be more adaptive to the current situation, right? If someone comes in and they're like, my legs are hurting as opposed to my back is hurting, you can't really go with your manual of, oh, this person's back has issues. It doesn't. Their legs are hurting. So how do you address that? How do you change up your sales pitch? And how do you address the actual concern, right? And I think that's what a lot of the people that I was initially training lacked. It was just that they couldn't deviate from manual, and it was like very robotic.
So if someone's like, the manual said, this is how you respond when the prospect says, my back hurts. But they said, hey, my leg hurts.
Yes.
How would they respond then?
So, your leg hurts, right? But then me as a beginner prospect, or even like slightly experienced, I've been training for like a month, they'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. But anyways, there's this like really nice lumbar system. And I'm just like, they've mentioned a clear problem, right?
Yeah. It's like, your leg hurts, but let me ask you, does your back hurt?
Exactly.
They're like, no. It's like, are you sure?
I mean, just continuing to circle back to their manual, right? And I was just like, that's not necessarily going to fly in any sales scenario. And so I think a lot of people struggled with that. And I think to a certain extent, you do need like some innate, I don't want to call it talent, but like maybe your experiences in the past have built up this skill of being able to listen and adapt and just communicate overall, right? And I think it was hard to find someone with those set of skills. And so obviously not going to sell as effectively if you're going by the manual the entire time.
Yeah.
And eventually, I hired the current sales guy. And so he's actually like a retired, he's retired. So he used to own like an air conditioning business.
Oh, wow. So he's like in his 50s, 60s, 70s.
60s, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a completely different demographic.
That is crazy.
Yeah. And he, like, exceptional communication skills and like really great sense of humor, right? But then the flip side was that he's maybe doesn't grasp the technology aspect quite as well. So like communicating like over text is not his strong suit, right? Or like the way that he texts isn't maybe how like a 30-year-old, 40-year-old would text.
I've seen older people like text as if they're emailing. Dear Taketo, blah, 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 blah. Sincerely, Sam. It's all in one text message.
Like they have the grammar corrected. There's like the spacing is good. Like, they have the little comma after thanks, which is like, but like I would much rather have that and someone that's willing to learn, and someone that's really good at communicating, can adapt, than these sort of fixed-minded individuals that like went by the script.
Yeah.
And so like he's great, right? Like he's adapted to like the texting, and like we have like a Calendly where you can like book appointments now.
Yeah.
And so like he's great at using that too. So it was just like the learning curve was a little bit steeper for him.
Yeah.
But now that he's caught up and like frankly exceeding my expectations, like it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on. I want to bring this a little bit closer for this final segment. I know. Suddenly they started showing up.
Yeah.
Oh, this looks very good. Okay. All right.
I'm like rambling.
No, this is good, dude. This is good. I probably won't edit this out, by the way. I told you. I like keep it raw, keep it real.
That's fair.
So what's the future of SaviorBack? Like, what are you thinking now? Like, let's say next year, 1, 5, 10 years. What are you hoping?
I was initially thinking of starting like a second location in Claremont, just because I was like, okay, if I can nail down Irvine and have this guy run Irvine, I can open up Claremont. I can sell to college students. I can sell to people. Like, there's a lot of colleges around that Claremont area, right? And so I'm like, that could be my clientele. There's a lot of professors. I could even sell to schools directly. And so that's like kind of where I'm heading currently, is that maybe not opening up a second location per se in Claremont, but working out larger deals with like schools, like institutions.
That's interesting. So you've been until now B2C, straight to customer.
Yeah.
But now you're thinking about going B2B.
B2B, right.
Yeah, targeting businesses, schools, stuff like that.
And so that process is like a whole new beast. I think the larger the client, the more formal the process is, and the more paperwork, the more negotiation goes into it. And I'm still figuring that process out. And so, like, for my school, Claremont McKenna, like, there's this individual that sources all the office supplies. And so, like, I'm coordinating with her, but it's like, takes so long to get responses back. Like, I went to her in person, and she's like, oh, like, we'll think about it. We don't know if we're gonna get that many office furniture, or like a large order of office furniture anytime soon. And so all these sort of like new processes that I'm not really used to. And so definitely trying to get into that more. I don't know if I have enough capacity on my end to like expand SaviorBack. So TV on, or like.
I guess the question is like, do you want to though?
I think if I had.
Like, theoretically, you don't have to go to college. Right?
True.
You don't have to go to college.
Yeah.
You're already running a very successful business.
Right. It's true, and I've thought about it a lot. And there's been a lot of people that told me to, like, I don't know if you know Kalen, but.
Oh, yeah.
Kalen?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So he was like, dude, you should just drop out of college.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're right. I want to, but the flip side of that is I wouldn't get to hang out with my friends as much. And I wouldn't get to have those experiences of like studying abroad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is that a fair trade-off? Like, I get to build this, really cool, it's like my baby, right? Like SaviorBack, I built it from the very beginning. And so I really do treasure it. But it's like, is expanding it and grinding for a few more years worth giving up a period of my life that I'm never gonna get back? And I think college is really special in the sense that it's like a transitional period, right? You don't have adult like responsibilities, but you have adult freedom in a sense. And I'm like, these 4 years, like for example, study abroad, I'm never gonna be able to travel to Milan for 4 months without any strings attached. I don't have kids, I don't have bills to pay other than tuition.
Arguably, you have enough money, you're making good profit margin, you can just take 4 months off and go on a vacation.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I've considered that, except I asked my financial aid person at school, and they're like, if you don't finish school within 4 years consecutively, your financial aid doesn't transfer over to the 5th year. And so that's like kind of what's stopping me.
Well, I guess the point is, look, so I'm gonna play devil's advocate.
Sure.
So probably what Kalen was saying, who's a sales guy who ran sales and operations at the company that I brought him to.
Yeah.
Most people go to college in order to get a job
Yeah.
to make money.
Sure.
Your job, your business is already making way more money than the average person, than the average college graduate, than the average master's graduate.
Yeah.
Like, it's making more money.
Right.
And you have a clear view of if you wanted to actually like dive into it and expand it, you probably could.
Yeah.
You probably could grow it into a multi-million-dollar business if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And so I think you bring up a good point. What if you were to just take a break? Because why not? You just drop out of school altogether, take a break, go off on vacation. Like, you can go for a year. Like, it doesn't really matter given that this guy is running it in Irvine for you.
That's true.
So then why college? Like, you can still hang out with those friends.
Yeah. I think part of it is like expectations from people around me, like parents, of like having a piece of paper to show for. And I think the whole idea of college has always been really conflicting to me, because you're paying, especially in the States, you're paying all this money.
How much is tuition every year?
Tuition at
Without
Claremont
financial
McKenna, without financial aid right now is at $90K a year.
Shut up.
$90,000 a year.
No.
Yeah.
So I talked to UCLA. So his name is Justin. He said that UCLA, it was like 30, 40, 50, somewhere around there. But he's in state and whatever. But he did mention like Northwestern and stuff. It's like 90,000. So your college is actually $90,000 a year.
$90,000, and they're raising it by like 4 or 5% every year.
Oh my gosh.
5% of 90, like that's a lot of money.
Oh my gosh. And what do you think is the average salary coming out if you get a job?
Right. Of Claremont McKenna? So
of your program.
I think the good thing is that it's really high. Like Claremont McKenna has one of the highest.
Okay, so what is it?
It's around like, I think like just under 100.
Wow, that is high.
It's at like 95 or 96.
Dang, that is high.
It is really high. It's primarily
what type of jobs
like
are there?
finance.
Okay.
Tech, consulting.
Got it.
So
okay.
like it's high earning jobs.
So at least
right?
I can understand this. Some of the other majors where they're making like 30, 40, 50,000, I'm like, I don't know.
Oh my gosh. No, that makes no, I'm like communications.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Music.
Yeah. And I'm like all for people that go to like Juilliard because they really like music, and like that's great that their family can afford it if they're of that caliber. But it's like, if you're going to Juilliard by taking out a student loan and you think you're going to be making 6 figures in the music industry, like that's really hard.
Yeah.
You have to be in some of the top performing orchestras, and it's like they don't fire people in orchestra because you have to like retire or like pass away.
It's like the government almost.
Wow.
Okay.
Exactly. So it's like a spot opens up, and like this is obviously deviating, so like sorry about that.
No, go ahead.
But like a spot opens up like every 2 or 3 years in an orchestra, and it's like thousands of people are auditioning for that one spot.
That's crazy.
And even then you're making like 70, 80K, and you have to teach on top of that.
Oh my God.
And so I'm like, if you're going to music because you think it's a viable like financial way or like reasoning, like it's not gonna.
So even going back to that, once again, you're making more than them.
Yeah.
Right now with your business, and you could make more because you're not just an employee, you're an owner, and you have the vision and the execution and the discipline and the vision to do it.
Yeah.
Why do you go to college? So you talked about other expectations.
Right.
Okay.
I think the primary one also is probably, like I come from like an Asian background, right? It does mean something to have like a degree to show for it, right? And I think it's really hard for Asian parents to wrap around the fact that you haven't gone down this traditional path of like go to college, get a good like 9 to 5, like just stable, normal, like no ups and downs, like just live your life and then like have kids. Like that's the.
But your parents have been watching you. They know how much you're making.
Yeah.
And do you think that there is a pressure from them, or do you feel that this is a pressure that you're putting on yourself?
I would say.
Or both?
It's definitely a mix of both. I think even though, they haven't been opposed to business at all, both my like stepdad and mom are like very adamant on like, you have to get this college education. And I'm like, myself as well, I'm like, I'm already this deep into it. Like, should I?
Sunk cost, yeah.
Sunk cost fallacy. Like,
yeah, sunk cost fallacy.
yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
This is crazy. Like, you made $1.5 million, and yet this force of kind of going with the crowd is so strong. And by the way, coming from Korea, like it's even stronger there.
Yeah.
But man, that is powerful.
It's so strong, and it's hard to not be like. It's hard to call yourself successful when you're not like a typical successful person out of college. Like, like get a job at like a good company in like finance, like tech. Like that's successful by conventional terms, but it's tough to not meet those like standards.
So like when you're in the Bay Area and you're hanging out with people from Neotax, and they all know your business.
Yeah.
Are they all like, hey, Taketo, you're close to being done with college? Or are they mostly like, drop out? You should just grow this.
Well, for us was like, told my mom, like when they were having a call with my mom, he was like, we're going to make sure he doesn't drop out of college. Like, don't worry about it. But that was only because my mom was like, I just want to make sure like he's not going to drop out of college.
I remember this,
That conversation. Kaylin's been like very insistent, like dude, you should just drop out. Like, why are you wasting 4 years of your life doing like nothing productive? And like I know internally too that that's probably a better use of my time.
Well, and now I'm going to take the flip side.
Yeah.
I think that's assuming that business and money is all you want, right? Like I think that's the thing. Like, it's not everything to people, I think there is something to be said of college. I've lately been more cynical about college, especially with AI,
right?
And all the things that are happening with AI and how I think that's going to transform the landscape even more.
Right.
But with that being said, like, I think I'm a bigger fan of just people being aware of why are they going, and if they're good with it, that's awesome. Like, hey, I understand the opportunity costs. I know that the opportunity cost is potentially millions of dollars, but I'm okay with that because this is what I want. And yes, there are some biases and stuff, but I'm good with this. Like, I'm happy with this, and I'm going to be happy with this decision. All the more power to you.
Right.
Like, I think the only thing that I worry about are people who just go with the flow without thinking about it.
Right.
Whether it is to quit school, whether it's to not go to school, whether it's to go to trade school, whether it's to do an apprenticeship, whether it's to go to college, whatever it is, as long as I feel like the person has done critical thinking and has thought about it with first principles, like, why am I doing this? What's the real reason? I think that's an amazing thing. And because I think that whatever the result is of the decision, if you have thought of it through first principles and you've thought of it very deeply in critical thinking and whatnot, you're going to learn a ton from it.
Right.
And you're going to get so much from it. But if you're just going with the flow, you're going to learn some. But like, it's like, I think learning, if you do that, it's like squeezing for orange juice and you're squeezing it this much versus like critical thinking, you're squeezing the crap out of that.
Right.
So within that same amount of time, you learn, you grow so much more.
Yeah. You're right. Like, I don't think, especially for me, it's not just the financial aspect. I think money, like, comes and goes, right? And I want to value, like I said, college is a very special 4 years, and I think you're never going to be able to travel, especially with your friends, to places, right? And have those experiences, go to other countries. I'm a really big fan of study abroad, huge fan. And I think
I studied abroad for a year in Korea.
Really? Which university?
Yonsei.
Nice. And great experience?
Oh, it was life impactful.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the reasons why I'm back in Korea was because of that experience.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm like, what if there's more opportunities there that are even bigger than SaviorBack? Maybe.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, and so I don't want to have like the what if feeling of like, oh yes, I built SaviorBack to 3-4x what it is now, but what would I have gained from Milan, right? I don't know. I'm doing a semester in Japan as well after Milan. So 2 semesters of study abroad.
Yeah.
And
I was gonna suggest that actually. I think like at least like a year is good.
Yeah. You know, like the feedback from college grads, and then like I've talked to a bunch of them, right? Or like even teachers that are, graduated from college. The people that didn't go on study abroad wishes that they would have gone to study abroad. The people that did a semester abroad wanted to do 2.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I did a year, so yeah.
Exactly. So it's like, and I don't know, like if you could have done more, would you have?
I don't know about that.
Okay.
I think I would have done it if I wanted to come back. What I would have done maybe is like to come back and work there. Like then, because like for me, one of my goals is to get fluent in Korean.
Right.
And my ultimate kind of check in the box would be to work at a Korean company.
Right.
So I think I would have probably done it that way as opposed to just kind of continuing to study.
Okay. Nice. So like maybe a year's a sweet spot, but it's like 2 semesters abroad, I think gives you a much more broad perspective of various aspects of life, like not just like business or anything, but how people live, how they interact with each other, like the different nuances, like how people communicate. I think that's really cool to experience like in real life, right? As opposed to like reading online or something. So I think that's a big factor too. And like the whole money thing, it's like you can make a bunch of money, but then you have to enjoy it too, That's something I've been thinking about recently is that like, obviously I'm fortunate enough to like have, like some disposable income. It's like, do I really want to keep up the grind and never travel, do like vacations, like never spend time with the people that I like during these vacations? And just grind. I'm gonna be 60, 70 when I can't travel. I'm like old, I'm like my knees hurt, my back hurts. Maybe I should get a nice chair with them, right?
Did you have a nice chair?
Yeah, I have plenty left over. But it's like, I gotta enjoy a little bit along the way too. And so I think part of going to college is not grinding so hard. I feel like I'm at a comfortable point where it's like SaviorBack is, for the most part, hands off for me. I spent like a few hours a week on it. And so it's in a good place where I like very fortunate to not have to worry about finances in my day-to-day life. And so now I want to take maybe a little bit more time to enjoy that and travel a bit. I count Milan as traveling. I'm gonna be in Japan for a semester, maybe like even over the summer as well, just like have a little bit more fun, right? I think the grind, I have like 40 years of my life to grind. Like there's so much more time to grind, and I think opportunities are going to be everywhere. It's not like SaviorBack is the only thing that I'm ever going to have for the rest of my life that I can, put time into and get money out of it. And so I want to spend a little bit more time for myself and just like take it easy a little bit, like travel, enjoy time with my friends, and see where it goes from there.
I think that's like a really interesting view because, people think of college as a stepping stone to some career but I think that's why like Kaylin and other people would look at you and be like, dude, quit college, it's a waste of time. But I think what you just said really, for me, kind of it makes so much sense. It's like, it's your version of chilling, of relaxing, of enjoying life. It's to go to college. Like you just want to enjoy that experience because you also didn't have a normal high school experience. Because you sacrifice, and you hear about that, like kids who are very mature when they're young. It's often because either they had a traumatic experience or they had to take on responsibilities that were way beyond their years. Whether their parents weren't there or whatever, they had to take care of their younger siblings. They had to grow up faster. But one of the things that they miss is their childhood. And it's almost like this is like you're reclaiming that childhood back. Well, it's not a childhood, but you know what I mean? You want that experience. Like this is an important experience. And you're in a position where it's like, that's such an interesting way of viewing college. It's just like, this is my way of enjoying life.
I think during high school when I was putting a lot of hours into SaviorBack, right? Like on the weekend, I would like basically either be at a storage unit cleaning chairs or like picking up chairs from other places. Or, I mean, during peak COVID, I was having like 5 to 6 people a day. And usually these appointments are like hours, an hour each. So after school, it would be, I get off school at like 2:30 or something. I'd go to the storage unit, I'd stay until like 8 o'clock-ish.
Oh my gosh.
And that would be my Monday to Friday, plus picking up chairs on the weekends and doing more appointments. And that was like the constant flow. And like I got home after 8 or whatever, and I had to do like website stuff, right?
Oh my gosh.
The website was really shitty initially because I built it.
I haven't looked at it recently, but it felt like a scam website.
It was pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie, like not the best job. I went on YouTube, looked at like a 15-minute tutorial, like, built it, whatever.
Well, things are a lot different now with AI and,
Way different. I had a friend revamp it
Okay.
And he's done a great job on
Okay.
that. So like, it looks a lot better now.
Okay.
But I guess my point is, you know, I sacrificed a lot of social time with friends to build this chair business. And there was a lot of times where I was like, oh, I can't hang out right now because I'm selling chairs.
Yeah.
And the whole going to college to reclaim like that in a couple of years of my life is like, I want to be able to hang out with friends without having to sacrifice those moments. And so hanging out with friends and just like going to school normally, and like, you know, I don't like doing schoolwork, but like it's part of it, right?
Yeah.
But
it's even that it's a shared experience with your friends.
Exactly. And I would hate to have $50-100 million by the time I'm like 30 or 40, but then have not had those relationships.
Yeah.
And like, you know, when you boil down life, it's like, it's all about your relationships, right? Like, who do you know? Or like, even like, who do you have as like a partner? And those aspects of life, I don't think you can put a monetary value to them. And so I want to take the time to like nurture those relationships, especially in college. And you know, again, I'm very fortunate to be able to do that without having to worry too much about the finances.
Yeah.
College is still very expensive.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like the opportunity cost is it's pretty high.
Yeah.
But
it's almost as if like if someone were to ask you like if money were not an issue, which it isn't actually for you, what would you do? And you're like, I want to spend time with friends.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to college and experience life.
Exactly.
Love it.
Yeah.
Dude, I can't think of a better way to end. So, Taketo, thanks so much for talking about this, man.
Thanks for coming all in to Irvine. Like, it's been so many. How many years? Like 4 years?
At least 2, probably 3.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, thanks so much for telling your story, man. I really enjoy hearing these stories because I think not only does it give me different perspectives, but I think it also gives our viewers different perspectives to hear different stories.
For sure.
They can't all come to Irvine and have a conversation with you, but through this, it's like a one to many, and who knows who's going to see this video, you know?
Exactly. Hopefully a lot of people.
For me, because I don't even have that many subscribers, I don't even wish for a lot of people. I wish for the right people. And I wish that for those right people that it makes a difference in their lives. Hopefully in a positive one.
Yeah.
So I'm confident that your story will do that for somebody.
Thanks for interviewing me. I mean, again, like first time I've done one of these, so like it's so cool to like be like a podcast experience.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my final question for you. How was the experience for you?
It was great. I loved like having a little walk in the beginning. It was like wasn't a sit down and you're on the spotlight type of situation. It was like a lot more casual, and walks are fun. You know, it's nice to get out of a chair for once, as ironic that it, like as ironic as that is. It's good to get up and walk around. Like you can't replace that on a chair, right? So it's like, it was awesome.
Very good. Well, all right. Peace. Done.